trimming this meat to the way I like it. Like I said, it's a big cook I'm doing. I'm gonna end up cooking 7 briskets in total. I'm not gonna bore you with the whole trimming of all 7 briskets, but I am gonna show you the process I use for the first one, and I might show you the final at the end. I'm throwing it into my meat lugs, meat totes here. They got liners in it. Just it helps with the cleanup. Things are really cheap. Like those right there, I think they came from Academy, like $6. So it keeps the wife happy with me because I don't have, every one of her dishes being used. I will say it sometimes struggles with where I'm gonna put all my stuff. I've built shelves, buy totes, put stuff in. At the end of the day, I just don't have enough room, but for everything that I want. And so, let's keep on trimming. On the trimming, it's up to you how much you trim off, but you want to make sure that you get any flaps or anything like that. Kind of trim, because all they're going to do is burn, not necessarily be savory. The difference between a nice bark or a char and burnt is not much. So it's a fine line. Still trying to get that big hunk right there. Just kind of cutting it out. Whenever I finish trimming all of that, I'll end up saving it, breaking it down to smaller portions, freezing it, and using it for something in the near future. So we'll keep on trimming. I'm gonna round that off a little bit. Let me see, this is a really good knife. I'm very proud. I kind of scalped it there. So, as you can tell, no matter how much practice you do, you still end up scalping it sometimes. That's okay. So again, I've had several people ask, where did you learn how to do this, to cook, whatnot? I'm not trained at all. Like, this is just something I learned how to do growing up. And, I've always liked to cook. My dad was a really good cook. So I watched him do a lot. He was really good on soup, stews, stuff like that. My family, really big family. Big 4th of July get together every year down in Sharkey County where I'm from. You never know. It might be 75 people, might be 250 people. Just depends on the year. But my cousins and I, we grew up around my uncles cooking, barbecuing. So it took a long time to get from the table setup crew to actually get to start helping with the actual cooking. But I can tell you, did a lot of learning during those years too, which really helped a lot with my passion for cooking. Something I do on the side, not necessarily something I want to do full time, but I do enjoy this when I have the time. Um, Sometimes it's hard to find the time, but that's life. You got two small kids, they're super busy all the time. And so, pay attention here so I don't get too deep. You can tell it's a lot of fat there. So I keep trimming that down. So that's it. These are 7 beef briskets, trimmed the way I like to trim them. You know, people can do it however they want to. This is just my preference. As you can tell, there are some skint marks, like this one here. It's a lot there. Had this weird little flap on it. What I do is I cut that off because all that's going to do is get burnt, and once it burns, it's just going to kind of not be very good for the rest of it. I will throw these on in the morning at 167 degrees. I know it's exact, but that's just the way I found that I like to do it. It is gone through the stall phase coming out of it, and once it starts going higher, so at 167, pull them, wrap them in butcher paper, put them back on. Once they're on, I crank the temp from 250 to 275 to 300, just depends on what I feel like and what time it is whenever that happens. And I will go from there at 202 degrees, which again, exact, but just my preference. And the probe goes in and feels like it's butter, like softened butter. That's whenever I pull them, throw them in the cooler. And at that point, if you can keep them above 160, and you can keep them for a long time. I've done 24 hours. I know you can do more than that, but that's as long as I've ever had to do. But that's kind of where we're at. I may have to cool these off. It just depends on what time they go in the cooler tomorrow, because we are eating at lunch the next day. So I will see there. If I have to cool them off, I'll throw them back on the smoker until they get up to temp, which is above 160 on the day you're serving, which is what I prefer. The juice will be there, it'll slice well, and the tenderization will be perfect. You know, again, I typically do Central Texas style barbecue, you know, salt, pepper only. This year, with this time, I'm doing, I guess a custom blend I make. Very simple. It's just certain percentages of granulated garlic, granulated onion, and salt and pepper. So kind of use that as my base for everything I do, and then add and subtract depending on the product that I'm making. But again, 7 briskets, whole pack of briskets. Here's my trimmings. I'm about to package that up in 2-pound packs so I can do burger and sausage whenever I get to it. It's not a big deal. It freezes very well, and will wait on me for the grinder. So welcome back. I am about to season my briskets and put them on. Just want to kind of show you my setup. It's supposed to rain all day today. I don't know when it's moving in, but I don't typically like to cook underneath my carport with my big cooker, but I don't really have an option. I don't want to stand in the rain a lot today. But so, got my briskets, trimmed them. A lot of people use a binder like mustard or mayonnaise or oil or something on their meat. I do not. There's enough moisture on this meat that it will hold your seasoning very well. So the first thing you do, for me, I don't put any salt in my rubs. I do that after the fact. One reason is because if you mix salt into other things, the salt is really heavy, so it tends to be not much salt to begin with, and then toward the end of your seasoning, it's all salt. So I just go ahead and lightly salt And I start with the back, where it's not the fat side. It's my preference. Whenever I flip it over, I don't have to flip it back. But this is my, again, brisket rub that I make. It's just a mixture. We'll shake that up. Made this a couple days ago. Like I said, granulated garlic, granulated onion, black pepper, coarse black pepper, and that's it. And this one, and then again a salt. So kind of put a good chunk on there, rub it in. Another thing to good barbecue is getting full coverage. So don't forget your ends. And again, I use a lot because this is mainly black pepper. So you don't have to worry about going too much because you've already salted separately. It is a big hunk of meat, so it will take a whole lot of salt to make it salty. So you'll be okay. All right, so again, don't forget the edges. And the way I do it, so I use these containers. This is what the main stuff came out of. Like I said, Members Mark came from Sam's. These are really good though because you can actually squeeze instead of shake. So that's what it looks like shaking, but when you squeeze it, it really puts some out. All right, so that one's done. I'm going to open up my pit. So right now, bottom grate, we're running about 207, top grate 277. So that will get better the warmer my pit gets, but I've got to get this on. It's 8 o'clock now. Got to get them on, so I'll put it on there. It'll continue warming up. I'll let it run to about 300 on the top. Then I'll start shutting back the gate. I'll show you that more in just a minute once I get them all on. Again, it's really hot right now, the top rack, but as soon as I open up this door, it's going to cool it off a lot. That's why I kind of let it go ahead and do this until I get my meat on. And that's whenever I really start regulating my temperature. So this is a Black Warrior smoker grill. It's one I got made in Alabama. They sell it. Well, they sell the majority of this. I did get some custom work done on the other side. I'll give you a tour of it in a minute. Really like this. This is what they call an indirect smoker. So the way this works, down here I have my firebox. This is what it looks like down here. I'll show you again. The fire's here. The smoke comes over. There's a baffle underneath this bottom grate right here that goes to right here. And then the smoke comes up and it comes back across to exit out of the exhaust pipe up here. So you can see I've got wood in my smoker. It's a preference of mine. What I've learned, especially with wet wood, because that's what I've got. It's been raining for several days now. I keep my wood out in the open. But I put this section on my smoker, just fill it up with wood. It dries out the wood, but it also gets the wood to temp. So whenever I want to, whenever I have to put more wood in my firebox, pull that, throw it in, it immediately lights up. There is no delay on that. So I don't have a lot of bouncing on my temperatures. My rebound time on temp is extremely fast by doing that. So that's my preference. My pit is big enough that I can do that. I've got the room. Like I said, you look at it, I'm putting 7 briskets on here today. So 3 on the top, 4 on the bottom. That's the way I'm gonna roll it for now. May change it up later, but again, I put the point of the brisket toward the heat. So firebox is here, but the heat is exiting right here. So you want to point the points that way, the flats this way, and what that's going to do, that point is a big hunk of meat. It'll take some abuse from your fire. Once these go on, I do not touch them for 3 hours. I am setting my bark. It's the only thing I do on time is the bark setting of that. And then once I get the bark set the color I want it to be, I'll have a spray bottle that I will put some apple cider vinegar, maybe a little apple juice. Normally I just apple cider vinegar and water, 50-50 mix, and I spritz once an hour just to keep it moist, but my bark stays set. It'll be really pretty whenever it gets done. So again, take my meat. That's what it looks like right there. You know, pretty good coating. And then there's nothing to it but to stick it on. That's it. I'll show you the rest final process. Once I get all the meat on, I'll show you what it looks like at that point. Alright, so again, I just got done seasoning everything. My temp, don't pay attention to it. The door's been open, so it's really cold right now. But it will warm up. Just gonna give you a tour of my pit. So I'm gonna open it up. It's a weighted counterweight on it to help. It's a heavy door. It's a 1/4 inch steel pit. Anyway, it's what I like. Once you get that metal hot, it stays hot for a long time, and you can really regulate heat. As you can tell, I've got 7 briskets on. All the points are kind of toward the door-ish, twisted a little bit that way to so they'll take the majority of the abuse. Again, I'll keep rotating wood out as I need it. But that's the inside right here. Like I said, 3 on top, 4 on the bottom. Gonna keep that going. I will warm up to an internal temp of 167 degrees. Once that happens, well, technically, not touch it for 3 hours. Once the 3 hours is up, then I will spritz every hour the entire brisket. I'll have a probe in here. This is a Chew God system, so it's 6 probes in one. Right now I'm running one for the top, one for the bottom. That gives the ambient air temp in there, so I know what to cook with. It has a thermometer on it. I don't like using the thermometer that's on it because to me it's not as accurate because it's only showing the temp right here where my hand is. I don't want that. I want it more in the center. So that's why I run this system. It has an app on it. I can use my phone, look at it, that type stuff, set alarms on it so I know when to do what, all that. Anyway, so that one there, again, Black Warrior Smokers. You can see their stuff, blackwarriorsmoker.com. Exhaust pipe here, I leave it completely open. That's the way I do my fire. You know, everybody kind of, just like everything else, you have your own preferences. That's what I like to do. Leave it wide open. That baffle there is only for extreme, minute temperature control changes. Most everything I do is on the back. I'll show you the back of the pit now. All right, so the back of my pit here, again, firebox is down low. Up here, this is a warming box or a sausage cooker, whatever you want it to be. You can pull this right here, it slides open, opens up a door, lets smoke come up, crack this vent, and you can run heat and smoke through here. The design on this is, it's nice, but I use it mainly for storage. It does not hold a whole pan. It will hold half pans. I only use whole pans, the big silver pans. So I wish it was bigger where it would hold a whole. That way I could throw my baked beans and whatnot in here to let them cook while I'm cooking on the main grate. Because it doesn't, I actually cook my baked beans, rolls, any of that stuff in the main pit area. Um, so it works well. It's just I wish this was big enough to hold a full silver tray. So again, the lower portion is my firebox. So it is an insulated firebox, so it doesn't use as much wood as an uninsulated. Still gets hot, so don't touch it, but it's not as hot as it could be. It won't be glowing cherry red whenever you've really got the fire going. My vent doors down here, so right now they're wide open to get the maximum airflow through my pit to get the temp I want. Once the temperature is where I want it, I start shutting those down. Typically, I run it. Um, typically, and this is my fire poker. Typically, I run them half like that, and then once this pit gets extremely up to temp and really gets just rolling, because it'll look like just a well-oiled sewing machine whenever it's really cooking. These typically, this one I shut completely, and this one I'll get to about right there. But that's once all the metal gets good and hot, kind of, put it um, to get the temperature where you want it. But for the time being, I leave it wide open until I hit 300, and then that's whenever I start doing my adjustments. I'm about to cool it off again because I want you to see. Again, nice design on the door. You can grab that. It's warm typically, but it's not too hot. I just don't. I just use my fire poker. But again, 1/4-inch insulated door, 16-inch firewood is what you can put in here. So if you're buying, cooking wood, I prefer 16-inch, 14 to 16 inches. 24-inch logs just does not work for me. But I'll keep it going. I'm gonna move this. Takes a little while, but you'll eventually get a good bed of coals underneath, good bed of coals on top, and it really will get to churning. So the way this works, completely closed except for the back behind the top. It's an expanding metal opening, and that's where your heat goes, smoke goes into the main cooking chamber. And so, like I said, that's my pit. I'll show you the back side. So this is the custom part that I got them to do. So this is a Santa Maria style grill. So you build your fire underneath, but what it does is the actual cooking grate goes up and down. So I'll show you on that. So I can roll that up, lock it off like that. Underneath here, that's your air control right there. There's your cooking area. You build your fire, get it going. This thing will get screaming hot, which is what I like. So if you're doing a lot of searing, pork chops, chicken, steaks, it's really good for all that. This right here is an Argentina style cooking grate. I did get them to do that. They typically do just expanding metal. This is an angle iron turned upside down, so it's V-shaped, butted together, welded on. What this does, it catches the drippings from your meat, and then it's like it as soon as it hits, it puts it moisture back into the meat, including flavor. They're touching together. There's no flare-ups. You can't, you won't burn your stuff because of flare-ups. I've got it split here. The reason is sometimes I do big cookings, a lot of times I don't. So I didn't want to have it where I just had to use the entire thing every single time. So it is 2 sections. So that's a 3-foot and a 2-foot section. So what I can do is both of them together, I've done 45 New York strips on there at one time. Um, it's just something added that I liked. I did get tandem axles. It's just preference there for pulling. I don't like single axle trailers. They just pull too rough. It's overkill for this trailer. It is overkill with the tandem axles, but that's okay. I much prefer the security of having an extra tire if I was to have a blowout, or even just pulling down the road. It just works really well. All right, so it is now a few minutes after 11. Just going to kind of let you check in, see what a product looks like. And so, been 3 hours on the pit. I've got my sauce here that I'm going to put on it, my spritzer. Nothing fancy. A little bit of water, apple cider vinegar, touch of Worcestershire sauce. Nothing major, just enough to kind of change the color, just a touch. Oh, let that open up. So, kind of see now, got a different color. Bark starting to get set, so I'm not going to wash off the seasoning whenever I use this. I did put a piece of sausage on there for lunch, but kind of just spritz. That way we can keep that moisture content up. Pull this bottom rack out. So that's all I'll do there. I'll end up adding a probe into each one of them now so I can watch the temp. But every hour I will hit it again with my spritzer. And then, like I said, at 167, at 167, we will pull them, wrap them, and then put them back on there and get the temp back up going. So as you can tell here, it's hard to see, but running about 140 because I had the door open. But before I pulled that up, we were at about 260, 255, 260. Again, the pit's finally gotten good and hot, so it is holding temps very well. As you can tell on the smoke, kind of a white smoke, blue smoke. It's kind of what they tell you. You can tell you don't want dirty smoke, which is where everything kind of gets sooted up. One with doing the wood in here, getting them hot and dry and all, when you throw it on there, normally you just keep on going. If you happen to see brown smoke come out, that's dirty smoke. So when you see the dirty smoke at that point, open your door, because you don't want that in there. You don't have enough oxygen going, so it'll get some more oxygen going. Once that turns to a different color, then you can go back to close it. If not, your meat will get real, kind of sooty, brown, just not appetizing. That's where you get the really smoky flavors too. And even though I cook with mainly wood, it will have a hint of smoke, but it won't be overpowering and really, really smoky. That's normally due to not enough oxygen and just too much smoke. Nobody really likes that. It's like eating a charcoal briquette. It's just not appetizing. So, like I said, I'll just keep on rolling with this and let you check in whenever I go to wrap. All right, so my first one has hit my temp of 165-ish degrees. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and wrap it now. So it's going to be one of my smaller ones here. Change that probe. So one of the tips I've learned, put on cotton gloves underneath your rubber gloves. That way you can just grab the meat. Don't have to worry about it burning your hands. So bark is set. Looks pretty good. So I've got butcher paper here. Right now this meat is done. I mean, it is 165-ish degrees. So now what we're doing is we're going for tenderness. So this one here, that's the point, fatty side up. So keep in mind where that is, because that's what you're going to want to keep it to. So fat cap down, fat cap back up. Right there. All right, that's all there is to it. You got the butcher paper. Throwing it back in. That one is ready to roll until hits an internal temp of 202 degrees. So, like I said, because every piece of meat is different, you never know how long each one's going to take. I highly recommend probes. You know, some people, they don't really care for probes. They want to do the touch test, all that. That's great. It's not for me. It's not precise enough. Even when I'm cooking steaks, I use a probe. You know, just that way it's perfect, just about every single time. And now we'll just wait until the next one's ready. So my buzzer just went off. My last brisket, so number 7, is finally ready to wrap. So I'm gonna do that. It is currently 6:11. So these briskets have been on almost 12 hours now. So that's the one thing I will tell you with a brisket. Man, you gotta let it be ready when it's ready. You don't rush it. You know, everybody's like, oh, you do a certain time, do times. You can't do times, in my opinion. Well, let me take that back. You can do times, but your quality of your product is gonna hurt because of it. It's gonna be smoky for a second. As you can tell, these are again ready. It's trying to start raining. Like I said, the last one, the bark has been set, so you see that color. That's what I'm looking for right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. And this is the biggest one, and that's why it took so long to get done. So again, that's what I was saying, is every piece of meat is different. No need in trying to rush it. It's a very expensive piece of meat. You know, dollar per pound wise, it's not terrible. I mean, these are, again, right at $4 a pound. But it's a $50 piece of meat. So just let it get ready when it is ready to be ready. So again, big hunk of meat. It's done. Going back on. now in there. I am sticking them. Ooh, that one's getting close right here. So when I stuck that in, the texture feeling very good on that. It's not ready yet. We're still got a little ways to go. That big one's probably going to take 16 hours, and not a fan of that tonight because again I didn't want to stay up too late, but it is what it is. Normally what I do is if I'm doing a lunchtime meeting or cooking, normally what I do is start them up about 8 o'clock at night, just stay up all night. That way whenever they come off, normally they're ready in time, but it can be tough at times. But anyway, so we're sitting there now waiting on 202 degrees internal. Gonna hit them with my hand probe, see what they feel like at that point. Once they hit 202, throw them in a cooler, put the cooler down. Like I said, 6 o'clock. We're eating in about, 18 hours. So pretty certain by the time those get off, it'll be between 10 and midnight. So 12 hours, I'll hold them hot. No need in cooling those off. I'm using a lot of wood right now. The temperature has dropped today. Currently it's about 36. And when that happens, it's a lot of metal you got to keep warm. It's starting to rain too. I can't get it completely out of the weather. So I'll just keep plugging along, and I will try to show you finished product. At least show you the sneak peek. Hopefully we'll get to show you the cutting of them tomorrow.
Don't leave me high and dry.